Hello crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's Brother ScanNCut Tips and Tricks tutorial, you are going to learn how to create card backgrounds using your Brother ScanNCut. The model of ScanNCut we are using is the CM350 or ScanNCut 2, but you can follow along with absolutely any model of ScanNCut you have. And if you're not comfortable just using the shapes on the machine, you can also follow along using Canvas Workspace, because the shapes are found inside of Canvas Workspace as well. But everything I'm doing today is going to be directly off of the machine. I want to give you an overview of what a card base is, and then I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what we're doing, just so you have an idea of how these skills are going to build. And then I'm going to, at the end of this video, show you finished cards, like complete cards where I've used the different card bases I cut out. All right, so before I even go over the type of paper, what is a card base? I mean, what is a card background, I should say. What is a card base versus a card background? So to make a card, just to make a card, I'm using Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I take one 8.5 by 11 sheet, I cut it in half, and I end up with an A2 card, with two A2 cards. I make loads of card bases at once. I have them sitting here in my craft room for all different colors. Okay, so this just happens to be a couple card bases I have. So I always make that size card, and then when the card comes out, it is, and I'll have this in the description of the video, it is 5.5 across, and it is 4 1/4 long. Okay, so that's the card background. That's an A2 card, a standard size card. So what I'm going to teach you is how to make these. First, we're just going to start by making the card backgrounds. Okay, card backgrounds for me, and they're different for everybody else. It doesn't, I mean, you don't have to do exactly what I do, but I like to have a 1/4 inch margin. So when I make a card background, I like to have it a 1/4 inch smaller on each side. So my card backgrounds are going to be 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then you're going to have that background. All right, so that's the beginning concept. So I'll show you how to do that on your machine. Okay, now let me show you, let me just get a dark color. So we have this awesome paper and we have a card background, but then I'm going to show you how to make shapes that then you can layer. You can layer them onto the background and you can have more interesting backgrounds. Still, just keep in mind your total area is still going to be the total card background. In the end, after I show you how to make the shapes, it's still going to be that same size, okay? It's still going to be 5 1/4 by 4, okay? But I'm going to show you how to make all these shapes to fill in your background. And so you can either make plain card backgrounds, you can create backgrounds with all 3 different shapes I show you how to make, or let me find my shapes. You can do some combination thereof, and I'll even show you some sort of things I've done with the coloring. So some combination thereof where you take your different shapes and you layer them. So like you could have a background, and then you could have, I know I just had all my shapes there. Here we go. I've already cut out lots of shapes for you. So you can make a background with one of your shapes. You can make a background with another shape on there. Okay, so you're going to make interesting card backgrounds. I've shown you how to make interesting card backgrounds using your ScanNCut before, using what's called the Tropical Oasis Designer Series paper. But today is special. I am using free paper. Free meaning you cannot buy this paper. I'm showing you how to do it with this paper, and I'm showing you different shapes than we've made before. So this paper here is by Stampin' Up, and it is called Flowering Foils Specialty Designer Series paper. It's only available while supplies last, and we've already run out of the vellum that I just got done telling you about like 1 day ago on the video. We've already run out of So Very vellum. Well, as far as I heard, I didn't actually see it from my own 2 eyes, but this is now while supplies last, so you get it for free with a $50 purchase. It's called Flowering Foils. You get 12 sheets. It's rose gold and silver and white, and these are the 4 designs. So let's just take, let's just take this one to start with, and we'll just make the card backgrounds using this piece here. So what I'm going to do is load it onto the mat. Okay, make sure your mat's sticky, all that good stuff. If it's not, give it a good rub. If not, you may have to tape it down with painter's tape, but my mat's pretty sticky. Now I'm going to show you the screen. Again, you can do this on your workspace. In fact, when I did my design for this project, I did it on Canvas Workspace, but I wanted my crafty friends to not have to use their computers. because I wanted you to be able to do things. Right now, a lot of you are hanging out in your craft rooms, you know, have more time, and I wanted you to be able to do everything right on your machine itself. So that's what we're going to do. So the pattern we're going to be using is built in. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera a little bit. I had to use a different camera today. All right, so you are going to turn on your machine, and it doesn't matter which model you have, like I said. You're going to see pattern and scan. So you're going to select pattern. We're using built-in patterns. You're going to select the shapes next. Somewhere I have a stylus, but it doesn't matter. Just use your stylus. And then you're going to select this certain shape. Okay, we're just going to select, it doesn't matter if you select a rectangle or a square. I'm just making the card background itself. So let's start with that. We're going to select that shape, which is just a square. But to change any square to a rectangle, you just have to turn off this button here that just, it's the proportion button. Now without turning that off, let's keep it on. If you change the shape, if you change this shape, the height and width stay in proportion, but we don't want that. We need a card base or background, card background. So we want to keep this button checked off. And now when we keep that checked off, I can change the width to 5.25. Remember, that's a 1/4 inch smaller than my card itself. And the height is going to be 4 inches. And I'm sure this varies by different country because you work in centimeters. We work in inches in the US, but you know, you're going to just use your metric measurements. Quite like this. Okay, so then I'm going to say I want 4 of these. I want 4 of these because that's how many will fit on your mat. Okay, so we're going to put 4. So let's do this first. Let's just cut these out. Now we'll have those done. We're going to say okay. We're going to cut, and this is something that I cut all the time. I probably cut 20 of these a day, and I would cut the inside of my cards this way as well. So I don't just cut the outside of my cards, I cut the inside of my cards. And I put the sentiments on them this way. Okay, so this is where we are at. I'm going to talk about blade depth. Now, if you're using an SDX type of machine, you don't need to worry about blade depth. Now, I'm using a little bit higher blade depth than I normally would because when I cut these card backgrounds, I'm using a 4 because this is specialty paper and it had to get through the little foiling. So today I've been using a 4 and that seems to work for me. So to change your blade depth, you just have to go, you know, up to 12 and back down to 4. I'm going to keep it on a 4 for the whole rest of the tutorial, but I'll probably mention it again when we do the next part. Let's do this. I'm going to go home and I'm going to delete everything. Okay, let's just unload the mat. And I want to talk about just this part. Because I really like to build your skills because I don't want to build on different shapes before you understand just the basic shapes. And so many people have asked me about making cards lately that I just wanted to cover this. So I pull off my paper, and you see my mat's not very sticky. That's why I was giving it a good rub. So I say to myself, which cards are going to make the best backgrounds? And I would say like this. So like this one here, it's so beautiful as it is. Let me get a dark piece of cardstock. It doesn't matter what you do to that. You could put that on a background and you don't need anything else. So this flowers are so beautiful that I probably wouldn't even do the rest of my technique to this because this flowering foil is so beautiful as it is. And maybe just one corner piece, okay? But this piece here, the flowers are sort of cut off. They're not centered anyway, so I might do my technique to that one. So let me show you what I mean by my technique. So let me find one here. So for this particular card, and I would have it on a black card base. So let's find a black card base here. Or I'd have it on a different color than real red. But if I wanted to color that, I don't even know what I just did with it. I guess this was the one. Or was that? No, that was the one. All right, so if I wanted to just make a card out of this, I would just stick it onto, just with some rolling adhesive, I would stick it onto my card after I color it, and that is it. And I don't even think I need anything else when you do that. Okay, so I'm going to show you my result of that. And this is one I colored the other day, and I used Rococo Rose markers. I'm just turning on my light. Okay, this paper is so fascinating, this flowering foils, because all these shiny parts like the silver and the rose gold, they resist the color. So you're left with all these shiny parts where the color sticks to the white paper just fine. So I used some old olive and I put it on a mossy meadow background, and I put Rococo Rose. Okay, so these blends, so not only is this paper free right now until March 31st or while supplies last, you can get a, when you spend $50 at my store until March 31st during celebration special, you can get a set of light and dark rose gold, not rose gold, I'm sorry, Rococo Rose Stampin' blends. Okay, so that's all you need. That's a background. That's how you make a card. All right, now let's build these skills. I've cleared off the screen. I'm going to build your skills, and we're going to do something with shapes. So you understand how to make a rectangle. We're going to do that one more time, and I'm going to turn up my. We're going to do that again, but this time we're going to make the other shapes we need to make the card, to make the whole card background I'm showing you. There's endless amounts of patterns for card backgrounds. I just did 2 triangles, for example, when I did my team swap. I just did the triangles this way because who can create a triangle easily with a card, with a paper trimmer? I sure can't create a triangle easily. So it's kind of the same concept, you know, you're just making background shapes. And the nice thing about a scan and cut is it cuts the shapes precisely for us. So let's start back at the beginning. I'm going to just load my mat because otherwise I'm standing here like pushing on my mat so it doesn't fall off my table. All right, we're back to the beginning. So we've made a card background. You understand how to make a card background. And I found my stylus. It was under my machine. We're going to go to pattern. We're going to go to shapes. We're going to get a square. We're going to change the proportion. We're going to make a card background. 5.25 always. For me. Not for you, but for me. My card backgrounds are always 5.25. Okay, by 4 inches high. All right, good. We're not making 4 of them yet. We're going to do that later. We're gonna build the skills. So we have this. Now let's do this now. We have a card background. We're gonna add a shape to this. We're gonna click add. We're gonna go to shapes. You're gonna scroll all the way down. And this is just the design I came up with, but there's infinite possibilities. I'm selecting this shape here. For me, because I'm using a ScanNCut 2 or CM350, my shape happens to be on page 8 of 10. Your shape might be in a different spot. If you're using Canvas Workspace, your shapes are not even named. Like this one's called BA-A117. I'll put that in the description of the video. Your shapes are not named in Canvas Workspace. You just have to look for the shape that's a trapezoid. All right, so now I'm going to change the height and width again, like this button here, proportion. And I'm going to create, we'll just create one for now because I can go back and reinforce this. So we're going to create one shape. The shape is going to be 4 inches high because it's going to go on the card background. Where are my shapes? I have all these shapes cut out already. Okay, well, I don't know how, it's amazing how we do things so easily. So we have a shape, right? So it's 4 inches high because it's going on a card background. There's the card background. It's 4 inches high, okay? So that's what the idea is. And we're going to make it, the whole shape, 2.2 inches wide. So 2.25 inches wide, sorry. And this will all be in the description. I experimented a lot with the different sizes, and this is what I came up with. It kind of gave the card balance with the middle portion being slightly bigger than the outer 2 portions. So 4 inches by 2.25. Now, although we'll make another shape, we'll do it in a minute. We don't want to do it now because I want to build your skills. So here we have 2 shapes. Now I want to put these together. Okay, I want to put this shape with that shape. Okay, and I'm gonna put them together. I want to align them. So first, let's just do this. I want to show you that I want to select them first, and then we're going to align them so that this is, I could do it, eyeball it, but if I eyeball it, I never really quite get them to be aligned, and that wouldn't be cutting out very evenly, right? So we need to use the tools we have at our disposal. So I'm going to edit mode. This is edit mode with the little shapes, and you're going to use the selection tool. So go to select. And I'm going to use the second one, which is the second selection, which is selecting everything. So now I have these selected. See, both the triangle or the trapezoid, I'm sorry, and the background. So now with both of those selected, I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to go into this tool here that looks like 4 little arrows pointing in different directions. And that's where I'm going to do my alignment. I'm going to go into there, and I want to align these to each other. I want to align both to the left. That's to the left. I want this to be to the left of that. And I also want to align them to the bottom of each other. Now, that's better than eyeballing. See how the plus signs are aligned? That is better than eyeballing it. And we do one more step, which is grouping them. We're going to group them with this button here. Your screens will look slightly different on the SDX machine, but I'm grouping them. And then we're going to say okay, and now we have this group with a shape. So now it's going to cut around the card, and then it's going to cut around the shape. So that's great. That's great. That's what we want. So already you have an interesting card background. So you can just stop there and be done, and you'd be happy. You could have this kind of card like this. You'd have your background, and then you'd have this really cool shape to put on it, and boy, you'd be golden. I mean, that's already fun. And you can color this, and I'll show you different things I did. All right, so you'd be happy just like that. But let's go one step further, and let's make another shape. And it'll also teach you about the reinforcement of this concept. All right, so I'm going to get that same shape again. Okay, here's the concept. Here's the concept. I'm taking this shape here. This is what the concept is. We're going to add another shape. We're going to rotate it 180 degrees. And we're going to have a shape that we can put on this side of our card. Now look at the interesting background we have. And I know I'm zoomed in, but later I'll be zoomed out. So that's the concept. So we need to add that same shape. So this will help you go find it again. Add shapes, page 8, right? Page 8, the trapezoid BA-A117. Now we're going to do that same, thing, 2.25. We're going to take the proportion, click on that. It's 2.25 wide, and it's 2.25 wide, and it's 4 inches high, exactly. 4 inches. Good. Now we need to rotate it. So your rotation button is here. You're going to rotate it 180. So 90 degrees, 90 more degrees, it's rotated 180 degrees. Okay, the rotation button is in the edit section of an SDX, but right there, it was right inside, right when we're in the screen. Okay, we are golden. We have what we need. Now we're going to set it on the mat, and now we want to take this and we want to put it there so we can align it exactly. Now you might be saying, Paper Chef, why don't we just make a bunch of shapes and put them out here and put them out here? We'd waste paper. I'm going to show you why, because when we cut this all as one, we have loads of extra paper left over. And although this paper is free, you still want to cherish it all you can. So we're now going to do what I taught you before. We're going to align this to this. Now, that's why we had to group this first, because this is one object and this is one object. So you could try to eyeball it and align it, but no, we're going to use our tools. We are professional crafters. We have a Brother ScanNCut. We are going to align with, go into edit, and we are going to use the selection. We're going to go to selection. We're going to select everything. This is the second option. The first option is when you want to draw a selection around something. I'll do more videos on all these concepts. In fact, I've done loads of videos on these concepts. So, but if you're new here, this is why I go over everything again and again in each video. All right, here we are. We want to align now. We've selected both objects. We're going to go to this little button that has the 4 arrows. We're going to click here. We're going to align not to the left this time, because we already have something over on the left. We are going to align to the right. Align to the right. We want to also align to the bottom. It could be to the top. It really doesn't matter. But I just kind of always use the bottom alignment. And we say, okay, now look at those plus signs. That shows that it's aligned. We're going to click OK. We're going to click OK. Last step is we must group these together. If we don't group them together, then we start moving them and they move independently. Here's where the saving paper comes in. I'm going to just, well, I can show you that later, but I do have, look, I have a piece of paper, and because I cut all these little mats out, I have all this extra paper left over. You can't really see it, but I mean, you're going to see how much extra paper. So we're going to now go to this button here. That's this resize button. We're going to click on there, and we're going to make 4 of these. So 4 total. You already have 1, but you still say 4 total. It'll make you 3 more. So here we are. Now you're like, Paper Chef, now I got to arrange them all and all this stuff. No, you don't. No, you don't need to do all that work. When you say okay, after you add a bunch of stuff to your screen, you say okay. And before you go to cut, we can actually use this auto alignment tool. There's an auto alignment tool, and that's this tool here with the little triangles on them. So I like to use the first option, which lets the Brother ScanNCut decide which way it needs to align them best. Now, of course, these are all rectangles. It's going to align them all upright. The second option is it'll turn some upright and some upside down. And the third option is it'll turn them all the same way. In this case, I'm going to let the machine decide, because that's the one I use the most. And the machine's going to decide, of course, to just leave them the way they are, because they're fine the way they are. So that's auto alignment. And that's okay. Now look how much extra paper we have left over. If I would have created all these separate shapes, then I would not have hardly any paper left over. And we need leftover paper to do other things with. Okay, so we're going to say okay. And we're going to say cut. Now, let's do this. Well, no, I'm not actually going to, well, we can do that because I do need some. I actually do need some more of these. So I'm actually going to cut these and I'll see you in 4 minutes or however long it takes. So I'm going to say cut. And the other thing I want to mention is when I do cut, it says 2 minutes, but it might raise time. When I do cut, I'm just going to keep on rubbing the paper so that it doesn't slip off the mat. And I'll show you what that looks like when I'm cutting. See how I'm just sort of, my mat's not very sticky. I'm just giving it a rub, or I am using painter's tape. Actually, I'm going to let the camera roll so I don't have to edit this video and I can get it on YouTube quicker. Because it's not taking very long, is it? What I'll do is I'll just let it roll. I'll just stop right there. I'm going to quit cutting and just that way stop. But I would normally cut 4 of these out at once. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what happened now. This part, we're going to unload the mat with the unload mat button. But one thing I want to just mention here is it cut these shapes. It cut them perfectly, but it does go around them. It does go around them twice. These little edges on the corner. So that's why your mat needs to be very sticky, because it goes around this shape twice. Because once it goes around the outside, right, when it cuts the outer shape, and then it goes around the inside and cuts this again. So your mat needs to be sticky. This needs to be precise so your mat doesn't slip. The other thing I want to mention is that if you did this with the Canvas workspace, you could have created these shapes and done something called divide. But on the machine, we don't have the divide option like we have on the Canvas workspace. You can divide shapes, and in the machine, we can only weld shapes and not divide them properly. You can sort of divide them, but not properly. All right, so what I'm going to do is show you how I unloaded the mat. I'm going to show you how to unload the mat, even though I just yanked them off, just to give you that final step, and then we're done with the scan and cut portion. I'm going to show you my projects. So to unload your mat, and I would normally cut all these out, because that's how I roll. I cut everything out at once. You use this button here, and you unload your mat. Okay, so now, voila, I have examples of what to do with all the stuff we just learned how to do. So we cut out all our paper, we cut out all our, cut your pack up, whatever. I cut several of these out. We'll use this background. Here's what I'm talking about, how much paper you have left over when you're all done, because I had a small pattern interval, meaning there was only a pattern interval of 1. There was very little space between each of these little card mats. So that's why I have so much leftover paper when I'm all done with this technique. All right, so then you take your, just going to get a card base, and you could do one of two things. You could just do this. You could just put this on and you'd be done with it. Okay, and you'd have your card background, and you'd be golden and you'd be happy and everything's fine. Okay? You could also do this. You could take your shapes, and of course it doesn't really matter how you get them off the mat, because these shapes you made were exactly the same on both the edges. And I'm just using a dark color for contrast. You could do this and you'd be golden. You'd have a cool little card background already like that. Just doing that. You could then add the middle pieces. But always use a different kind of middle piece. You put that little middle piece in there, you'd be golden. Okay. I found it is easier to leave the background. You just use more paper this way, but I found it was easier to either use liquid glue, okay, because I had some trouble when I put these through a sticker machine. I hope I don't have a big glare there. I'm going to turn the camera a little, or turn the light a little bit. When I used the sticker machine for my card backgrounds, I was trying to use a sticker machine, and then I put them on the card. They were so unforgiving, and I couldn't move the pieces again. So I recommend liquid glue for these little pieces, but that kind of made my cards bulge a little. So then I recommend this. You could do this instead. The same effect can be achieved a lot easier. You just use a little bit more paper, but heck, it is free paper, right? It's free when you purchase something for $50. Put that there. I found it was easier to do that. So after my first card of trying to put all shapes and trying to align them, I did something like this. I did that type of effect. So I would have this one. I would have this piece as my background, and then I would just glue these on top of it, and then everything was precisely aligned. It worked so much better. All right, so what do you do with all this? Let's talk about what do you do with all this. A couple weeks ago, no, maybe last month. Oh gosh, it could have been the month before. Let's see, February, nope, it was February 2020. I did a video in February 2020, and I did a video on the paper pumpkin kit last month's paper pumpkin kit. It was called Lovely Day. And I showed you in that video how to cut out these beautiful roses. And I made lots of little Mother's Day cards. So I made lots of Mother's Day cards with all these flowers from the Lovely Day paper pumpkin kit. Rococo Rose was one of the coordinating colors, and so was Rose Gold. I just have them in bags because I'm not sending them out yet. Okay, so that's the background. If you want to know how to cut out this rose, if you're a paper pumpkin subscriber, or it doesn't matter, if you have any stamped images and you want to understand how to cut out stamped images, then refer to that tutorial, which will be linked in the description of this video. So this was the rose that I started with. I used my Brother ScanNCut, and I colored the roses with Rococo. I colored these roses with Rococo Rose, that free item that's being offered right now until the end of the month. I colored it with light and dark Rococo Rose Stampin' Blends. I also used Old Olive for the pieces on this, the light and dark for the leaves, and I used Petal Pink for the middle. And when I was all done on my cards, I used a Wink of Stella pen. That Wink of Stella gives it a little bit of glimmer and shimmer. I don't know if you can see that, but I probably have gone through 10 of these pens. They're so awesome. So again, Stampin' Up sells Wink of Stella pens. Just be careful when you open them because glitter goes everywhere when you don't open them correctly. All right, so that's the background. I taught in that tutorial last month about how to layer, and these have rose gold layers behind them. All right, with all that said, that's how I made these cards. I don't want anything to be a mystery. In other words, you just learned how to make a card background, both a regular one and one with shapes in it. Now I'm going to show you what to do with those skills. Last month I taught you how to cut out and color. I even showed you how to color these roses from the Lovely Day paper pumpkin kit. I showed you how to create layers. I have ones in various stages of completion. So here's what I did with all of those things. Let's put it all together, and I will start with this card here. So for this card here, this is my example of what techniques you just learned tonight. So this is a card background, and I thought, wow, that looks pretty nice sticking out the back, a little flower sticking out the back. So 2/3 of the card have this background at an angle, and then I wanted to put this piece on top of that piece, and I said, self, you don't contrast very well, right? So let me show you what I did. So I put this, this is this background. So that card background looks like this. And I was like, there's not a whole lot of contrast there, is there, between this and this? So what I did, I'm going to show you what I did because there's no mystery. My crafty friends have to know how to repeat my projects. You know, I always have the descriptions of things in the tutorial. So I took this Petal Pink color and I sponged the background of this with my little finger sponge, which is now missing in action, of course. But I do have a finger sponge. You put them on your finger, and I finger sponged this little guy to make him have a contrasting color. Then I took this butterfly punch. Let me just stand him up. So I'm using just because celebration is going on. Let's face it. It ends March 31st. There's no time left here. So I'm going to show you all these things you can get for free. And so, hey, that's how I roll. This was just out yesterday. They told us this was one of the items you can earn for free when you spend 100, whereas the flowering foils paper is something you can earn when you spend 50. So I was just, highlighting some free items on my projects today. And this is the butterfly duet punch. And so what I did is I took paper, another free type of paper. The free paper that I used for some of this is called Woven Threads Designer Series paper. And in that Woven Threads Designer Series paper, these are for my pizza boxes, by the way, my mini pizza boxes. This is not full sheets. They come in 12 by 12 sheets. But in that Woven Threads Designer Series paper, which is based on our ink colors, there was this Rococo Rose color. So I took the butterfly punch and I punched out these butterflies using the Rococo Rose, which is a matching color of the blends and that paper. And then I put some glitter. There's a Wink of Stella on them. And I used a piece of cardstock for this one to make it contrast because these two are designer series paper and I used cardstock for that one. So that is how I made that card. Oh, I forgot to tell you these are Blackberry Bliss, the little berries. So where did I get the sentiment? Oh, surprise, surprise, from a free stamp set that you can earn until March 31st. This is a free stamp set. Sending you thoughts. Celebration 2020 ends March 31st. There's where I got this happy birthday sentiment and with a great big wish for happiness in the inside of the card. And that is what I'm sending out, hopefully tomorrow. And I stamped that in Blackberry Bliss, and I used my little finger sponge around the outside, and I used what's called the pretty label punch to make the little sentiment. All right, next card. Building upon the concepts. So I did, for this one, I used the 3 shapes that I showed you. So that shape, and that shape. I layered up this back, I used sending you thoughts, happy birthday. I layered up this little happy birthday for contrast. Again, I colored this with Rococo Rose blends, and I used rose gold foil on my butterflies. So I used rose gold foil to cut out these 3 butterflies. And my last card that I did with this concept, I did a little bit more ink sponging on this one. So what's nice about this flowering foils paper, and let's see if there's anything inside. No, this one might have something inside it. Yeah, a great big wish for happiness. I like that. I did like that sentiment in the inside. That's what I was talking about where I said I make tons of these each day. Like this is my Whisper White. That's that same size as this matting. 5 1/4 by 4. Just make loads of those when you get your Whisper White cardstock. Loads of those. Then you're always ready. Why do you think I make so many cards so quickly? Because I have all these card bases already made. I have all these card backgrounds already made. I have all these pieces already made. Then I just need to color according to the project I'm doing. All right, so for this card, that's where that little sponging technique comes in effect. So when you have 3 pieces that don't really contrast that much with each other, you know, these pieces have the silver and the rose gold, and they have this white, then if you sponge them, like in this middle piece here, I sponged it with petal pink, and look at that, how that pops along the middle. But I didn't sponge the inside portion, just the outer edges of this piece with petal pink. And so that's how I got that effect. I also sponge colored this flower to make them stick out a little more. Make her or him, I don't know, it's a flower. Make it stick out a little more. And that's how I did that card. So I just used petal pink on my finger, and I just sponged around it. I could have used Rococo Rose, but I thought there was already too much Rococo Rose going on in this scene already. So this is that, let's see what that one is. That one is woven threads, and that's cardstock. And this is rose gold. So I always like to do things in 3s with my embellishment. So I made 3 butterflies on each of my cards. I either 3 butterflies of different sizes. So there you have it. That is how you can use the technique I just taught you. And really, we did this with Tropical Oasis, with where we did 4 squares the other day, and I showed you how to layer those. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Do this with any type of designer series paper you already have. You don't have to get the products I'm using. I'm just, you know, showing you how awesome they are, and I hope you like them. And if you do, then use my link in the description. So that's all for now. This is the Paper Chef, and if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.